Okay, our last half hour of the second segment. And as I promised, I want to get all clinical and talk academically about trauma, okay? And I want to start with just regular old run-of-the-mill, normal trauma, okay? Trauma may be the most common condition in much of the African American community. Trauma from dental pain without the money to have it relieved. The trauma of working 2 full-time jobs trying to make ends meet. The trauma of knowing your children are now home alone in a dangerous neighborhood until you can arrive hours later because each workday you spend 2 hours each way on the bus traveling to and from work. The trauma of having been the victim of incest or sexual abuse by a family friend. It didn't take a rocket scientist, professor, or pastor to know that much of the African American community is in big trouble. All you have to do is look around our urban and poor neighborhoods to discover that crime, violence, disintegration of the family, miseducation of our children, poor nutrition, racism, discrimination, disparities in the criminal and social justice systems, unemployment, and depression have taken a terrible toll on us as an ethnic group. To make matters worse, the African American community is fractured along class lines. The poor and the middle class see each other as 2 different races, even 2 different species. We're not willing to work together. We do not see our problems and our struggles in common. We have a me first and only my kids mentality that is destroying the unity that used to insist that if one of us got ahead, we would then aid others in getting ahead. Again, trauma may be the most common condition in much of the African American community. Have you ever thought about the trauma of being unlucky enough to attend a crappy school? One is broken, but because the school district has the power to tax, never dies. A school where lots of teachers live with the trauma of being somewhere they just don't want to be, yet they need a job. A school where the adults have given up on the kids and the kids on the adults, yet the law says you must attend until the law thinks you're old enough to make your own bad decision, or you're too big for them to control you anymore. How about for the half of our students who did not drop out testing in math and reading as African American high school seniors at the same level as the average white 13-year-old? How's that for starting a career with trauma? How's this happen? How can it be? It happens just a little bit at a time. We adapt. Life goes on. We feel bad and try many good-sounding strategies, but without a viable solution in sight. By not knowing that we don't even know what is constraining us, then failure is pretty easy. We just feel more defeated each day. Eventually, we decide it's bigger than us because we just can't handle it. We conclude that we'll do the little that we can do to bring about change. Yet, trauma still reigns supreme. One other thing. The following sentences from an article entitled A Matter of Black Lives that was published in the September 2015 issue of Atlantic Magazine. Just one short little quote. From 1980 to 2013, 262,000 black males were killed in America, end quote. That's an average of 7,939 each of 33 consecutive years. Who really cares? If you do, then what are you doing about it? Do you know what to do about it? Or is that the real issue? Do we just not know what to do? If we knew, would we? If you knew, would you? Would you do all that you can do and all that you know to do to end the needless trauma in the African American community? Within the African American culture, a segment is experiencing extreme positive evolution. The best schools, the best jobs, and they are definitely building wealth. while a significant percentage within the same African American community is actually devolving. And life simply goes on as cultural polarity expands. Okay. I want to talk about Australia. The natives of Australia, they call the Aborigines and the Torres Strait Islanders. And as happened in many countries that were colonized, the children of the leadership were taken from them and put in boarding schools to be acculturated in the European culture. Okay? It happened right here. I went to Hampton Institute, right across the Mason-Dixon line in Virginia, if you will. And to this day stands this huge building on campus, going literally back to the 1860s. That's called the Wigwam, because that's where the Native American kids were housed on this particular campus that had been taken from. Okay, so what they found in Australia is these kids, their descendants, they were their descendants, both, were exhibiting some pretty confusing behavior. So they drilled down, and what they found was that literally 70% of these children, whether they be male or female, had been sexually abused repeatedly in these boarding schools in Australia. Kind of like slavery, huh? So, being good Australians, they feel guilty about it now. They didn't know better then. Culture accepted it, so everybody in that culture shares blame, okay? Just like we all share blame for some of the atrocities happening in the world as we sit here now. We should never be too high and mighty. So they passed a law that said, every 4 years, the Social Justice Committee is supposed to do a report on how they can heal, how the Australian government can help the descendants of these abused people. They call it the lost generation, to heal. And the report's about that big. It's about 300 pages, and it's got all kinds of stupid graphs and stuff. But it had 8 pages. They just blew me away. Just totally the best description of intergenerational trauma I've ever found. So when I do like this, I'm quoting the report's quote of some researcher. And when I don't do that, I'm just quoting from the text of the report itself. Okay. The part I love starts out defining trauma. It says trauma is qualitatively different from other negative life stressors, for it fundamentally shifts perceptions of reality. Healing from the wounds of such an experience requires a restitution of order and meaning to one's life. Greg Phillips talks about 3 areas of trauma. Situational trauma, trauma that occurs as a result of a specific or discrete event. For example, a car accident, murder, or being taken away. Situational trauma. Cumulative trauma. These are his words, not mine. It is subtle and has the feelings build over time. It is subtle and the feelings build over time. For example, racism. And finally, intergenerational trauma. Greg Phillips, still I'm quoting. If trauma is not dealt with adequately in one generation, it often gets passed down unwittingly in the behaviors and in your thought system. Your culture. The report quotes Professor Helen Milroy, who's an indigenous psychiatrist specializing in child psychology. as she describes, I love this word, how trauma flows. The transgenerational effects of trauma occur via a variety of mechanisms, including the impact of attachment relationship with caregivers, the impact on parenting and family functioning, the association with parental, physical, and mental illness, disconnection and alienation from the extended family, culture, and society. These effects are exacerbated, I always kill that word, exacerbated by exposure to continuing high levels of stress and traumatization, where children witness the ongoing effects of the original trauma which a parent or caregiver has experienced. Did you get that? Or did I destroy the reading of it?
Get that.
Got it? Okay. Even, I'm still quoting her, even where children are protected from the traumatic stories of their ancestors, past traumas still impact on the children's health, family dysfunction, community violence, psychological morbidity, and even mortality. Professor Judy Atkinson notes that trauma becomes expressed as anger, violence, and criminal behavior, where rage turns inward but cascades down the generations, growing more complex over time. Anger, hopelessness, worthlessness, and a lack of genuine opportunities and disconnection run like a common thread. I was hyperventilating when I read this the first time. Trauma becomes expressed as anger, violence, and criminal behavior, where rage turns inward but cascades down the generations, growing more complex over time. Anger, hopelessness, worthlessness, and a lack of genuine opportunities and disconnection run like a common thread. That is deep. This stuff feeds on itself from generation to generation after it gets rolling, as you so adequately pointed out, brilliantly pointed out. We're back to Gregory Phillips again. Remember him? Greg Phillips. I'm sorry. This is Greg. Healing is a spiritual process that includes truly understanding the root cause of the trauma, therapeutic change, and cultural renewal. His word, not mine. It can't just be one, it must be all those things. Still Greg Phillips. What is striking is how healing is different from Section 8 vouchers, Obamacare, TANF. I made that up. He said, really, I made it up. I'm going to quote him straight up now. What is striking is how healing is different from health services, housing, aged care, or family support. These are crucial services that can help establish the foundation for healing to take place and support people during the healing process, but they are not healing in and of themselves. Similarly, unless healing services reach the crux of therapeutic change and cultural renewal, they will not achieve their aims. What he's saying is so simple. He's like, okay, it's true, we're three-part beings. And in our society, we spend a lot of time drilling down and trying to take care of our physical being, exercise, diet, all that kind of good stuff. We hold kids captive at least 12 years trying to put some knowledge into their intellectual being, their mental being. But how about our spiritual being? How much attention and nurture do we give to that? So, Urban educators I know are really frustrated because, they got into education for joy and satisfaction and knowing that they're helping little human beings. And they know they're failing and they try their best and they're still failing because they ain't figured out the root cause and corrected it yet. And the other people I know who are that frustrated are people working in social services. And they say things like, I know I can help them, but they won't let me. They just don't want to heal. But they're trying to deal with their physical being and their intellectual being. They're trying to get them excited about some job training, or act like you got some sense when you get on a job. They don't realize that we're spiritually broken.
They're not trying to heal the emotions.
They're not trying to heal the emotions. So how do you expect somebody to act like they're spiritually whole when they're spiritually broken? But guess what? As you'll find out before this process is over, spiritual healing happens just like that. Physical healing may take a long time. You get back surgery, you're not going to get over it for 12, 15, 26 weeks, okay? But you connect the dots to your spirit, and there's no turning back. It's instantaneous. Greg, I think this is still Greg Phillips. No, this is from the report. Reconciliation. Healing is part of reconciliation. It is not about attributing blame or a black armband view of history, his words, black armband view of history, pun intended. Healing is a part of reconciliation. It is not about attributing blame or a black armband view of history, but honestly facing up to the mistakes of the past and acknowledging our shared history and shared culture. It's that simple. We just have to honestly look at our past with intellectual honesty. So that not only can we learn from it, but we can connect the dots between what once in that context and that cultural setting anyway made sense and see how it's still negatively impacting us. So poof, we can let go and be transformationally and instantly healed. Do you get it? Or let's jump back in time a little bit. Remember we talked about a linked sequential process being necessary in order to heal? Please close your eyes, please. And center yourselves. Now take a few deep breaths. And please keep your eyes closed until I finish. Because we have not loved and appreciated the ancestors, because we have not examined and taught the African American experience with intellectual honesty, because we have not done a Sankofa so we could understand the grandeur and richness of African history, we have not healed from the experience of slavery. Let me say that again. Because we haven't loved and appreciated the ancestors, examined and taught the African American experience with intellectual honesty, done a Sankofa, look back so that we can understand the grandeur and richness of African history and know our value, we have not healed from the experience of slavery. We flounder. Today, we flounder because of what we don't know, while living, unconsciously living, the negative mental legacies of slavery. Okay, somebody's wondering what's Sankofa. Sankofa teaches that we must go back and fetch what we forgot. The Akan people of West Africa use pictures to relay messages of the utmost importance. One of the most widely recognized symbols of their culture is that of Sankofa. Sankofa is expressed as a mythic bird that flies forward while looking backward with an egg symbolizing the future in its mouth. You get that? It can fly forward aggressively because it has taken a hard look back Why is it taking a hard big look back? To be able to accurately nurture future generations. Whatever we have lost, forgotten, forgone, or been stripped of can be reclaimed, revived, preserved, and perpetuated. In short, the image of Sankofa means it is not taboo to go back and fetch what you forgot. Or to put it another way, we must understand where we came from in order to get to where we need to be. Because we have failed to really face the horror of slavery so that we can heal from it, we remain disempowered by our past. And finally, do you see it, feel it? Do you see how each of these harmful contemporary behaviors has their roots in residual negative mental legacies of slavery? It is imperative that we realize that we are psychologically scarred. Behaviors which once were necessary for our physical and mental survival are now our worst enemies. And we have been complicit in our own pain because we have been unwilling to dissect our experience of slavery, relive and agonize over its horrors, thereby creating insight whereby we might understand and then heal from our traumas. Let me do that last one just one last time. Do you see how each of these harmful contemporary behaviors has their roots in residual, unconscious, negative mental legacies of slavery? It's imperative that we realize that we are psychologically scarred, as we should be, from a few centuries of slavery. Behaviors which once were necessary for our physical and mental survival. And thank God we each have a series of personal ancestors who loved us enough to choose life in the days when hope unborn had died and death would have been a sweet release solely so that we could know today. And let's face it, we've been complicit in our own pain because we've been unwilling to dissect our experience of slavery, relive, and agonize over its horrors, thereby creating insight where we might understand and heal from our traumas. Or said another way, ain't nobody standing in our way of our healing ourselves. Nobody has the power to stop our personal healing. Only thing that has the power to stop that is what we don't know that we don't know until we know that we know, in which case we've been freed. Only we can heal our community, and healing is exactly what we need. The ancestors gifted us with today, a time where we can, in fact, choose a new path, culture, if you will, and craft a new future. Whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. Whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. And as we're closing in on our first full day together, 6-hour point, the second segment, if you will, I have a very simple question. What do you not understand? What can we clarify?
I understand it all.
If only you can cure yourselves, how can I be a helper?
Yeah. Okay. Let me give you a long answer to that. Okay. First of all, I need to acknowledge that in my 32-year struggle, I never thought about white people at all. I just had in my head that And this is where I know that I was trying to do more than just figure out what the blockage was, that I was searching for a solution to, which I don't think I was always conscious of. Because I felt that for the solution to be valid, it had to be something that we can implement ourselves without the aid of assistance of anyone else. And that's not because I considered everybody else evil or anything like that. I don't. I think they're just as uninformed as we are. But because I love my people too much to put their healing or to want to put their healing in the hands of anyone else. You get that? And as soon as I became positive that I knew what the blockage was and that we could heal ourselves, everybody started talking to me about white people. I mean, it's like somebody flipped a switch, and twice, 3, 4 times a day, somebody saying, Howard, this isn't just about black people, it's about white people too. Everybody's been impacted by slavery. Slavery impacts the oppressed as well as the oppressor. And I had to acknowledge it. If for no other reason, because I wrote a story once called Love is the Weapon, Dignity is the Prize. And the first sentence in the story was, would you have rather been the slave or the slave owner? And it's a serious question. Would you have rather been the person abusing? Or would you have rather accepted the abuse? It's a serious question of values. It speaks volumes to one's personal humanity. Let me go on. So I started inviting white people. And they had reactions to this very similar to black people. I mean, light bulbs were firing there for the first time too. They were getting it. And then I started teaching it to mental health professionals. And so far I've taught it to about 150 mental health professionals. And they really get it. They're like, oh my God, we've been ignoring the spirit. How easy might life be if we give the spirit the same emphasis? I'm not talking about instead of, but let's face it. If one of those three is wagging the dog, who's wagging the dog? Is the physical wagging the dog, or is the spiritual wagging the dog? Because if you're whole spiritually, you are ready to take care of yourself physically, and you are ready to take care of yourself intellectually and emotionally and economically and everything else. But if you're broken spiritually, in many cases, those things are impossible. So, Ann, it ain't nothing wrong with some allies. You hear me? It ain't nothing wrong with some allies. I celebrate people just like you that get it and care enough to devote time and talent and resources to this work, to the healing, not just of black people, but the healing of white people. This obsession of mine, I finally grew to realize it wasn't just an obsession with how can the African American community heal. It's also how can we finally have racial reconciliation in America. And it's as simple as just tell the truth. That's all. Without blame, fault associated with it whatsoever. Just tell the truth. Because if we have a common truth, where we need to go from here in a loving manner is crystal clear. It's when we have two quite different realities, neither one of which are accurate, that, oh, I don't understand these black people. These black people are like, oh, these white people, they think it's easy being. Just tell the truth, doggone it.
They say the truth will set you
The truth will set you free.
Always will.
And you know something? I don't know if this was the first place that was recorded, okay? But in a major temple in Egypt along the Nile, that statement is carved in stone from at least 5,000 years ago. Wow. Know the truth. And, what jumped into my head in perfect honesty is only the truth can set you free.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about just set the oppressor free. Set the oppressed free. Anything else?
I have another one. The issue of spirituality is not necessarily religion. Yes, no?
Absolutely not. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely not.
So then let me try something on you. I mean, I have a goodly amount of counseling that I've gone through in my background, and what I have found is we can all be prattling on and using our thinking selves, and then the counselor will say, "Ann, what are you feeling right now?" And it almost gets to be a joke. You can almost feel when it's going to come on. Oh yeah, now you're going to ask me, "Ann, what are you feeling right now?" And it's very clear to me that a great deal of importance is being attributed to what am I feeling, rather than whatever my over intellectualized, well, you know, I know historically or academically, and she will just cut in and say, "Ann, what are you feeling right now?" And it's been usually what you're feeling has nothing whatsoever to do with what you're saying.
That's right.
So is that spirituality?
Yes, yes. What she's really asking you is, Ann, listen to your soul
Yeah.
and tell me what your soul knows to be true, as opposed to what you've been acculturated to believe.
Yeah.
Really. And see, the problem in this crazy society we live in is we got all these crazy electronic devices and stuff just dumbing down our brains all the time by not giving us the silence we need to really process and to hear that small voice inside that is our spiritual soul, that is our, by definition, our spiritual being. And we all have it. We know we have it. We can't deny it, right? But how often do we give it a chance to speak? And what it needs to be in order to speak is merely silence. That's what we're doing when we center ourselves. We're inviting our soul to help us process. You know, I shouldn't go here, Ann, but you're making me do it. I'm a Christian. You know, I mean, we Africans were converted to Christianity literally before we left the slave castle. We were branded and we were baptized in the reverse order. We were baptized first, then we were branded. Okay. But if you only look at what is attributed to Christ himself, okay? Like forget all the Old Testament because he didn't even exist, okay? And forget all that Paul stuff from the New Testament. Just look at what was attributed to having come out of Jesus Christ's mouth. You will be amazed. He said 18 times, "I am no more divine than you are." Really? He said 18 times, "I'm here to explain that love is the answer." That is the beginning, the middle, and the end of everything. He said straight up explicitly at least a half dozen times, "I did not come to create a religion, and don't be throwing one on me after I'm gone." He said, "I'm not even here to change the law. I'm here to introduce you to a whole new possibility called love." He said point blank, Jesus Christ himself, "If you love, you have satisfied all of God's requirements." All of them. And he ain't never said nothing about God being upset with us or the existence of some hell. Man created all that crap long after he was gone. But we're evolving in our understanding, in our appreciation for our cultural being. I mean, for our soul, for our spiritual being. And you know, at the core of this work, it's as simple as just pointing out, there is a spirit. Tap into it and you'll soar. You know, don't tap into it, you won't soar. So, you know, without getting into theology, listen to spirit. And we'll all be, if everybody listened to Spirit, you know what we'd have? Ma'at. I mean, really. If we were into our spiritual being, our society would look just like ancient Kemet, because we would be trying to grow in our ability to give and receive love first and foremost. And because of that, we wouldn't eavesdrop or extend our boundaries of concern and all those other 42 negative confessions. It could have been 442 negative confessions. Okay? It's all about love. It's all about love. It is all. What did grandfather say? Love begets love. Evil begets evil. Love will always overcome evil when love acts to. Yet evil always acts while love often waits. And then he said, just don't wait. Just know you can't lose as long as you're loving. He says, your life is just a moment in time without a proper name, but whether you realize it or not, what you do and don't do, you're enhancing or harming, enhances or harms, and enhances or harms for countless generations or until somebody else intercedes. I thank you who are experiencing this right along with us so very much for caring enough to spend time and, yes, your talents, financial talents, to be a part of understanding the African American community, understanding cultural intergenerational trauma and how it directly accounts for the negative, self-destructive behaviors of African Americans. And I hope that you'll share this work, share this information, share this knowledge with everybody you know. Encourage them to have this experience themselves. It is a Socratic and experiential experience. Try to explain it to them. I guarantee you it won't work. Just get them to experience it. And as an experience, it has yet to fail. So I want to thank you, and I really want to thank the three of you. I mean, your openness, your honesty, your willingness to be transparent is just, it's a lovely thing to experience. So thank you on loving on everybody else. And just thanks for being here. I know your time is your life. And I thank you for gifting all of us, for gifting society as a whole with some of your life. You only have gotten the first third in effect, really. It's 18 hours in total. But you still won't see things the same anymore. You'll find negative mental legacies of slavery under every rock. Because they are. Particularly, and this is the next segment, what we believe we can't do. So we don't even try. When the truth is just the opposite. There's hardly anything we can't do if we're willing to try. Because he can only say yes. All the forces of the universe will come in alignment with our deepest desires, if it's really our deepest desires. Even if we're wrong. Even if we're trying to be the next best Hitler. He can only say yes. And as a final thought, don't take a trip to planet Earth too seriously. I mean, if we're right that we're really immortal souls, I mean, a trip to planet Earth got to be like a weekend getaway or something. It's just an opportunity to forget our divine selves so that we can experientially experience love all over again. How cool is that? It is. It's really, really cool. So thank you. Thank you all, one and all.